Hey y'all, it's Sarah. I have got a couple fun things to show you today, and this is kind of a recycling project to use with some of your foam core strips. It's coming up on the holiday season, and I'm the kind of person that I do not like to throw away boxes. I don't know why I'm like that, but it's a real thing. I know a lot of people end up with shipping boxes and things like that, so this is a really good kind of recycling craft idea, and I want to jump right into it. So the first thing is, I've had a lot of people on the Peppermint Cactus group ask me to show you how to make a crate. Well, I thought there was a couple ways I could show you. Now, I've made crates strictly using my faux painted foam core strips and did it straight from scratch. While you can do that and it works fine, it's not as strong. 2, it takes a whole lot more math. And 3, this is going to go ahead and give you a form where really all you have to do is just kind of mark things down. So I'm going to jump into showing you what I did to get this one covered nicely, and a couple more ideas. So my box that I am using is straight up 13 inches wide by 10. And my height is about 7.5, but this height is not going to be what my final size is, and you'll see that, and you'll kind of see why. So I went ahead and cut my strips down to save time, and this is going to be different for every single person's craft, simply for the fact that it depends on what size box you get your hands on. I want to show you that for my box in particular, it does have a little bit of a ledge here because of the thickness on the end where the little flaps close. I went ahead and cut the shortest length down, which is this size, and it just made it really easy for me to pop those up there. And it's usually just a hair under a 1/4 inch of thickness for this foam core. So I did it really simply. I went ahead and cut those sides down, which were going to be really easy. And then I marked out what my length this direction was going to be. So for me, that added little bump down here was about a 1/4 inch on each end. So I ended up with 13.5. And you'll see why I chose to do that. When I came in with my 13.5, that is going to give these the ability to be flush, a little more flush right here on the edge. If you can see that. And as we go, you'll see how that lines up really nicely. But this is a pretty simple thing. Now, for this box, I'm not going to do a bottom. You could, and you'll see that I did the bottom on one of the other ones that I show you. But for this particular one, I'm not going to worry about it. The bottom of this thing, because of what goes in it, is pretty stinking sturdy. So I really wasn't going to alter it too much. So to get started, I'm just going to go ahead and start gluing my sides on. I found it easier, as with cutting my short sides, I found it easier to start gluing those first. And I just wanted to show you a couple of tricks on doing that, just to get it kind of flush here. Since your corners round off, it'll kind of make it easier to show you how to get it lined up so you don't have kind of jagged edges there. So all I did was take just a strip, your ruler, whatever it is that you can use as a straight edge. And I'm going to load my first strip right here, flush down towards the bottom. And I'm just putting a strip up here to line that up. I'm aligning it with my fingers along this bottom. And I want to make sure that I use this part to flush it up with this flat side. And that just made it easier for me. Now here's what you're going to see as we get up to here. You notice that I'm using 3-inch strips on mine. There's going to be quite an overhang, and I did that on purpose. So I want to go ahead and get the 2 bottoms here, the 2 bottoms on the other side, and then the next section you'll see one little difference that I'm going to make on those. So I'm coming back in, I'm putting something flush up against that edge just to bump this up and make sure that I have it flush there so that these sides are going to align flush. I'm going to flip over, do this side, same steps, Load this thing up with glue. Guys, you would be amazed how sturdy, if you're using a cardboard box frame and then adding these faux strips over that cardboard frame, by the time this is all said and done, these things are pretty stinking sturdy. I actually sat on the one that you'll see coming up. I didn't wiggle, of course. I didn't move around a whole lot, but I sat on it. And for a cardboard box, it felt pretty sturdy underneath me. Now, if you're curious about the paint color on this, I typically go with the Salvage Barnwood look, and that is its own tutorial, and I'll try to make sure to link that below. Some of these are scraps that I had that I cut down. Okay, so you can see I just did these two on each of the shorter sides, and I'm going to do the same thing for the longer sides. And if you notice, I kind of made sure that I went ahead and painted my edges. We're going to hide most of them, and we'll be able to do most of it at the end, painting those edges out. But I wanted to show you, if you're worried about any of your box showing through, come in with some of your matching paint colors. For me, I'm using a mixture that I've got here of Waverly Wax and Antique, a little bit of Waverly ink, which is their chalk paint in black, and a little bit of the clear. And I keep this mixed up. And if I was worried about any of this showing from the outside, and this is particular if you're going to do one of them without the trim that I'm going to add, you might just want to come in and nip those. Make sure that there's no color of your box showing through. It's not necessary, but if you feel like it might be showing through, that's a quick thing to just kind of run across there. So I'm coming in with my longer side now. I want to get this lined up. And you want to run across the bottom. Make sure that you're lining it up nicely along the bottom of your box. That way it's going to sit nice and flat when we flip this up. So some of my ends aren't finished. I'll be able to go in and tap those with paint. Here before I've put my little final touches on it. And the final touches that you put on, those are really, really able to be kind of personalized too. So I'm going to continue to do this. Okay, so I have all 4 of these done. Now here's where I'm going to come back in with a little bit of paint. This is my same little mixture. This is what I like to do all of my edges with, because it has a little bit of brown undertones, a little bit of black undertones, and it typically matches all of the wood tones that I would want to use. So I can come in now. I'm going to hide these with some decorative strips, but I still like to know that they're finished. So I did that. These are my last couple of strips, because you notice there is still some exposed part of my box. I want to at least throw a little color on the back of these, because this is the part that's going to stick up so that we're not necessarily looking straight in at cardboard box. And I don't have to be perfect on this, so I'm just going to use my little kitchen sponge that I typically use just for the edges, just to get that stark white from showing. If we see down into our box, one of my boxes was cardboard as you look down in it, but I plan on filling that one with moss, so you're not going to really see it. And this one, once you put items in it, you're not going to see all the way down into it either. Oh, I love this rich brown color. I don't know why, I just do. So you can see there, I didn't go really special with that. I just wanted some color on it. And it was much easier to do it now at this step than it is once it's put together. I just found it easier right at this point. So let me wipe my little mess up here. Same stage here. I'm going to come in and do the 2 shorter ends for myself first. It just helps me get these aligned up a little better. And I went a little overboard with my glue. Try not to do that. It completely just slipped my mind that that side is going to be sticking up. So I want to make sure, because we have this ledge sticking up, I'm going to make sure that I've got this section down here that's touching the box adhered really well. This time I will remember not to get glue too far up on that edge. And I reminded myself of that last time, and here I still did it. I think I get too excited in my ideas. So I'm going to pop this one down in place. I want to make sure that that adhesion to that little bit of box part that I'm connected to. And you'll have to work on your measurements to give yourself a little bit of this overhang. But now you can kind of see why I wanted to go ahead and paint that down, so that I'm not seeing bright white right there from the edge. I'm going to end up filling up my little fake crate here, probably up to about this line, with some Christmassy items, possibly a couple throw pillows or a blanket or something. So it's not going to be a big deal that it is cardboard down in there, but I wanted the edges to kind of blend and keep giving that idea. So I went with that overhang method. And I'm going to try to make sure I glue this really heavily, just so my ends don't bend. Same thing, I'm going to flip over. This is just a really easy way, without having to do too much building. I did one that turned out very cute, and I started from scratch. It was not bad. It was a lot more work, though. And I didn't feel like it was nearly as sturdy as what this is going to feel like when it is all said and done. So if you wanted to, you could come in right now, put some across here, the same way we did our sides, and you would have a nice little riser. This is certainly sturdy enough at this stage, especially if you put a couple strips across this and used it as a top. This would be a great riser for the shorter, smaller Dollar Tree Christmas trees. So that's an idea if you kind of just wanted to boost them up a little and make them a little bigger and taller and feel like they're a little more grand. So like I said, this part's about to get covered up. I just like knowing that I did my edges. So I'm going to come in on these portions right here. I want to make sure that I've got that secure. And when I build the strips around it, my little decorative strips around it, that's really going to secure that quite a bit. But if I've got any spacing like that, I personally want to make sure it's a little more secure. So this whole thing was built with 3-inch wide strips, doing it the measurement that was going to work at my box. You could have done your strips any size you wanted. You guys know that because my ruler started off at 3 inches wide, all of my strips tend to be at that width. So I had some shorter pieces left over of these, obviously, when I cut them down. So I have gone in and cut some of those down to a 1-inch width. This is 3 inches wide, so you get 3 widths of these. I went ahead and did it that way. You cut it which way suits you. And I'm going to kind of do the same thing. For me, now we're looking at the longer span of my box. And I'm going to have to paint this raw edge from where I cut these. But I kind of want to make sure when I'm doing this, that when this one on this longer side, because this is the side that I'm going to probably want to look at the most, I would rather have it showing this way, where I'm not seeing any raw edge, from the front than I would this way. So I'm going to have an overhang on here where that goes about 1/4 inch, kind of the same way we did getting this edge here. So back to the same method, you want to come in and start at this shorter width of your box to get these. Okay, so I've got a lot of paint and a lot of little strips going on here, and I kind of changed my direction just a little ways in here, simply for the fact that I realized I had a few extra of my skinny strips that were long enough to do it a slightly different way. So that's what I'm going to do. I've got these 1-inch strips. I'm going to start with this bottom section right here. And I probably should have done this one the very same way and started with my shorter side. And I'm just using this to help me align that. Get it fairly flush. So you can kind of see where I'm going here. I'm boxing this entire thing out. And that really is kind of a personal choice. You could simply just take your little side strips and go up each side, starting with your shorter side, get that guy in place, and then pop your other side down, and you can see you have a nice little edge frame for that. This is a really good way to go. I figured since I had some of those long strips, I would go ahead and kind of frame this whole thing out a little bit spiffier. And you can kind of see where I'm going with mine. I'm going to have an entire frame around this guy. And the reason I'm kind of dry fitting it this way is just to make sure, you know, cardboard boxes are not always folded exactly even. So since I know where this is going to line up, I'm just going to go ahead and do this wider face. It was just easier to go this direction to show you guys this detail because I couldn't get far enough back without bumping y'all right in the face. One of these days I'll learn about camera angles and those kind of things, but honestly I'd rather be crafting. So I'm going to bump this up here to allow me to kind of see where I want this to come out at. Same thing here, and I still have some raw edges, and I can come in and paint those at the very end. So I want to do this side over here. And get it glued in place with just a little bit of overhang for my little side piece over here. I hope that makes sense, but this is really simple. You can kind of just feel your way through and kind of just do it with whatever makes your eyes happy and what's going to work for your space. But I wanted to give you guys an idea. So this is where mine is going to continue to go. I'm only going to do this one portion right here on video because I want to show you the couple other ideas. And here we go. I've got mine nice and framed out. This is going to help secure this free edge, this overhead hang edge that we had up at this top. That'll make it a little sturdier as we continue to frame that out. And we'll have a finished crate like this. Now, one of the things you can do, and this is why I said it was easier to go that direction. One of the things you can do is come in and just using some Dollar Tree nautical rope, you can run a hole through the side of your crate and make a rope handle. You could glue a rope handle in. I'm pretty sure I'm just going to leave mine plain for now, but I want to jump in and show you a couple other ideas of doing pretty much the same thing, but different uses for them. Let me slide this guy out of the way and put his little remaining pieces together so I can finish playing with that myself, because I didn't want to run out of time to show you. So here is a smaller version that I have done. This was a much smaller box. This thing is so stable and sturdy. You can see that my bottom is done, or my top surface, whichever you want to consider that. And I told you that I had one that had some cardboard. I'm going to put a much larger tree than like the little Dollar Tree in here. Mine's like a 4.5 foot that I'm going to place down in here, and I will fill the rest of this out with moss. And so you're not even going to see this inside for me, but I wanted to show you this little guy. And it can also be used this way as a riser. This is a really fun way to use it, especially on some of your smaller boxes. This box is really sturdy. I imagine it could probably hold quite a bit of weight up as a riser. So even my little 4 to 5 foot tree, it would likely hold it on this side too if I wanted to use it as a riser. And one more that I wanted to show you, and this one's going to be hard to show because it is a pretty good size one. So I have turned mine into a gift box, and I know this is crazy trying to get it on the space. Maybe you can see it this way. So I made a gift box out of mine, and literally I used a bunch of scraps, as you can see. And the only difference is, if you notice, it looks like my gift box has a little lid. I just did the main frame of the box and then went back around one more time on the top to look like it had a lid on it. One of the things that I did not do on this one, and there's a reason why, I've got to get a longer strand of string lights of the kind that you plug in, because I'm going to run holes through this one and run my string lights in it, just like I did with my little faux palette Christmas tree. So this guy's going to light up when I'm done. In order to be able to get in there and do that, I left the bottom part unfinished. This is still a nice stable one. This is the one I said that I sat down on. I didn't wiggle, I didn't do anything, but I sat down on it just to see how sturdy these things were, and this sucker was pretty stinking sturdy. I know that was a little awkward to get that in camera, but I wanted to show you a couple of ways that you could really recycle some boxes. I'm going to try to get some photos up of what these look like finished so that you can really get the full impact. And I hope that at least, if you hated all of it, that's okay. But maybe it gave you an idea of something to do or recycle, or try this on a really large scale. Any box frame that you've got, you pretty much can cover with these, and it really does get super sturdy. You'd be really surprised how that turns out to look. I really like the gift box idea. I kind of like doing the gift box idea for under my tree with the open bottom, even if I don't put lights inside of that, because I have kids that are snoops. Even as teenagers, they are snoops. So if I kind of wanted to set that down over a real present that I didn't want them to notice, I think that's a really fun way to do it. Some of you may not have to worry about that with yours, but I thought that was a fun way that I could hide maybe something special where they wouldn't notice it until the last minute. I don't put presents out until really closer to Christmas. My oldest son has autism, and for many years his impulse control with presents was not the best, so we did not put our presents out until the very last minute. So I like having ideas to decorate under my tree without actually having the presents under there. So I hope this gives you an idea for that. I will stop rambling. I hope that you guys get a chance to craft today, or at least sometime this week. For me, it's Monday. It's a fresh start at being awesome. I hope you get a chance to be awesome, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.